안녕하세요. LanguagEX의 세롬입니다. Hi, I'm Serom and you're watching LanguageX. So today, I'm going to give a review of Speaking English on Saturday's class. Last class, we learned about humility. Humility is an awareness of our constant need for growth, having proper respect and consideration for others, and owning up to our mistakes. So first, let's look at some vocabulary words we learned. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. To admit, to accept. Let's use acknowledge in a sentence. We can acknowledge that hard work is part of a student's life. She acknowledged that her words can be hurtful. Refuse. Refuse. An unwillingness to do or accept. For an example of refuse in a sentence, can I refuse to go to the hospital? Consideration. Consideration. Careful thought, careful thinking, caring about. For an example of consideration used in a sentence, the university can give consideration to the students. We learned one grammar point last time as well. Can. 할 수 있다. Can is used to talk about your or someone else's ability to do something. For some examples, I can acknowledge I'm wrong. We can speak English. You can refuse to do it. They can own up to it. I hope he can get back on track. We learned some helpful phrases relating to humility. Own up. Own up. It means to admit, to accept, to take responsibility. For an example in a sentence, Ted was too frightened to own up to his mistake. Another helpful phrase is back on track. Back on track. For an example in a sentence, our family vacation was a big help to get back on track. Now listen carefully to the reading and see if you can find the vocabulary words, grammar, and helpful phrases that we just learned. It is not always easy to be humble and say, I made a mistake, or I'm wrong. We all like to be right, if not all the time, most of the time. But as good and right as we may be, or want to be, we all make mistakes. That's part of life. The problem is not in making mistakes, but committing the same mistakes because we fail to recognize our failures. We must recognize that we are not always right or complete in ourselves. If we refuse to admit our mistakes, we stop growth and progress in our lives. We can't change what we don't acknowledge. When we make a mistake, the only way to bring about real change is to admit it, accept our responsibility, and get ourselves back on track. That is humility in action. Lastly, we had a discussion about humility. The first question is, do you think humility is a good trait? Who is the most humble person you know? How would you describe him or her? Next, is it easy to admit mistakes? Why or why not? Lastly, we are not always right. What do you think about this statement? Okay, that's it for the review of the last Speaking English on Saturdays class. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and push the notification bell. See you next time. 안녕!